Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about one of the most ridiculous lines that people use, and I want people to understand why it's ridiculous, of when they say that I know that this athlete or this person that I follow, I know that they're natural and that they're drug-free because they train so hard. Their work ethic, what they've achieved is through sheer hard work because they just train harder than other people. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. And I think the reason that this comes out, and maybe I'm partially to blame for this, because I'm one of the people who puts the research out there, puts the data out there showing that actually this whole idea that people have to train hard to gain a ton of muscle when they start putting stuff into their body, that it's not actually true, that they can actually gain muscle pretty rapidly sitting around not exercising at all. There's plenty of studies that have looked at that take people with at least a year of lifting experience, have them come off of all their training, lay around, be lazy, and then gain 15, 16, 18 pounds of muscle mass when they put them on testosterone in a lab, right? And we've seen it happen. There are multiple studies confirming this. It's not just one at this point. So we see that, and then we say, okay, so it is a lazy way out for a lot of people. And the truth is, yeah, it can be a lazy way out for a lot of people, because a lot of people don't want to train hard. They want to be lazy. They want to sit on their ass. They want to go to the gym and do some curls and chest and get jacked, right? They want to sit around on cables and machines and get jacked, right? I mean, we see pro bodybuilders who train like this, guys who are massive, who train like little girls. Like, I literally know 115-pound women who could out-train some of these guys, or at least out-train the way that they train at the gym, and they're massive and jacked, right? We see them there, but those are genetic freaks who are using enormous amounts of stuff. Mind-boggling amounts. I know people like, Jason, why do you always say the mind-boggling amounts? Because it is. It really is. I mean, if you look at Dallas MacArthur's autopsy, that's mind-boggling. So we see the stuff like that, and then we think in our heads, okay, yeah, this is the lazy way out. Or you got guys like the Mike O'Hearn, who is obviously not natural, who says silly stuff like, steroids is just a word the lazy use to describe the dedicated. That's his way of saying, hey, I'm natural because I just train harder than everyone else, so everyone accuses me, when he's way beyond his natural limits. This guy continued to gain muscle in his 30s. He was already jacked. The guy in his 20s was jacked. He was easily at his natural limit in his 20s, if not beyond it. And then he gained another, 10 pounds of muscle in his 30s, another 10, 15 pounds of muscle in his 40s. Come on. Ridiculous. And I'm not saying the guy doesn't have a crazy work ethic, because he does. But, he's one of the people who spreads that too, of CS just for lazy people. And if you train hard enough, you can get as big as the guys who are using tons of stuff without using anything. And so they promote this idea. So we do see this out here, but then that gives that false idea, doesn't it? Because then people will say something like, well, this person I follow, they have an insane work ethic, right? They have an insane work ethic. They train harder than anyone. They're just like a machine. And you look at them and you kind of go, that's actually evidence in the other direction. That's actually a red flag that they're using stuff. And people say, what? And it should be common sense, but it isn't common sense because people don't realize that, because we have so much of the propaganda the other direction that people use things because they're lazy. But I want you to think about this biologically. What do androgen receptors in the brain, what's one of the things they control? Aggression and drive, right? Men are generally more driven and aggressive than women. And when we look at women who are really driven, what do we find? They have higher testosterone levels than other women. Like, you take women who are the CEOs of companies and stuff, they have higher testosterone levels than other women. They're driven, that type A personality. Well, we also, we think about all the stories of roid rage and everything out there. Where do you think those stories come from? Because they do increase aggression. But where's that aggression also play into? That aggression is not always negative. Aggression is not always a negative, violent, harmful thing, is it? You can be aggressive in your training. You can be aggressive in your approach to something that you're really driven to do. Well, what about lifting weights? What about training out on the field? If someone is putting a substance into their body that increases aggression and drive, where most people would want to stop, that person might dig in and do 3 more sets of deadlifts. That person might dig in and do 5 more sets for their chest when other people would give up because they're exhausted, because they have a substance binding to their brain that's telling them to keep pushing. All right, it can increase work ethic. It can increase work capacity. It can give you the ability to train harder. So that's one thing that people need to think of. Oh, well, maybe they're injecting their motivation, right? That's one thing. But then we come to the other end. Do people understand the concept of overtraining? Do they understand the concept of overuse? Do they understand the concept of recovery? If you were to train as hard as you possibly could all the time, under normal circumstances, you do know you would overtrain, right? You know you would start regressing eventually. You know you would have problems. We have recovery issues. Well, when you start talking to a lot of athletes out there and you find out the reasons a lot of them really take things, why is it? To help them recover faster from their training, right? Helps them recover faster from their training so they can train again sooner. And it doesn't even have to be weight training. It could be sprinting. It could be running. It could be different endeavors. Athletes take a lot of these substances because a lot of them speed up tissue healing. They speed up basically regeneration and recovery from your training, from your practice, from everything else. So if you have a person who seems to have an insane work ethic and they seem to be able to recover and train really hard all the time, they don't need to deload, they don't need to do light days, they don't need to go heavy, medium, light. They can do 3-4 heavy days a week and just go all out, high volume, heavy weight, high intensity, forced reps, drop sets every time they're in the gym. And they just keep recovering and getting better. I mean, people need to step back and say, you think that in your mind that that's a sign of someone being natural? You think it's just because they don't give up that they get that? No. In normal people, our bodies don't recover. We have a finite amount of recovery, people. It seems almost as if they're superhuman. Maybe there's a substance in their body that's helping them recover from this better. You see, that if you look at it from that perspective, and when someone says that and you don't grasp that, I mean, I would say to a lot of people who see that and they're not grasping that, don't have kids, because your kids are going to fool you one day. Like, you're going to have a son one day, you're going to look at him and you're going to be like, son, you sure do crave Pop-Tarts a lot. Why are your eyes so bloodshot? Have you been smoking weed? Right? You're going to ask them that one day, and they're going to be like, no, Dad, I have red eyes all the time because I have allergies. And then you say, oh, yeah, that's right. So my son couldn't be smoking weed because he has allergies. His allergies just happen to make his eyes bloodshot all the time, and he gets the munchies a lot, but he couldn't possibly be on weed. That's how you're going to sound. You're going to be that easily fooled one day. Like, don't have kids if you're that naive, because your kids are going to be able to convince you they're not smoking weed, and their evidence is going to be because they have bloodshot eyes and they get the munchies and they crave, Hot Pockets and burritos. Do you see where I'm going with this? This is not proof that they're natural. This is proof that your person's probably using pretty hefty doses of that there, cell tech, right? Because normal people and people who use very small amounts have more limited recovery. You can only handle so much. The rest of us out here, we have to take lighter days. We have to deload. We have to take days off. We can't go all out 5-6 days every week. We can't come in and do 20 sets to failure 5 days in a row and keep recovering from that. See, that requires assistance. That requires chemical assistance that helps your tissues regenerate quicker to pull that off. That's not how it works in normal human beings. Again, this is why training programming becomes extremely critical for people who are not using anything. This is why you have to balance the ebb and flow of maximum recoverable volume. But even people using stuff have to do this also. They just have a bigger margin of error. They got a bigger margin of error. So when you look at it and you start saying things like, well, this person, they've got to be clean because that's how just because they train so hard. And it's like, they train hard because they've got liquid motivation and liquid recovery. And I'm not saying that's true all the time, but that is actually a red flag. That's a red flag right there. And I'm not saying everyone who trains hard is automatically using stuff, but you need to look at the manner of what we consider to be training hard. I mean, training consistent versus training all out like a lot of these guys do all the time. There's a big difference there. It's a big difference. And yeah, I understand that there's that stigma that people do take things purely to be lazy, and there are people who do that. There's a lot of people who do that. Hell, like I said, we see pro bodybuilders who do that. They're there. But that doesn't mean that all these guys who are clearly using stuff who aren't lazy, that doesn't mean that they're natural. It means that they're the ones who are saying, hey, I want to get the best possible results, so I'm going to take stuff and I'm going to train as hard as I can. I'm going to bust my ass as hard as possible to make the most out of this stuff that I'm using, right? That's what a lot of them are doing. And so that's the difference you're seeing. It's not to say that person wouldn't be jacked completely without training the way that they do, because they would even with the stuff they're taking. It's just that they are going to maximize on it. And you do see those people. And I think that does set them apart from the people who take a bunch of stuff and who are lazy and just do a bunch of cable work and crap. And that's fine. But people do need to understand that that's not proof that they're natural. It's quite the opposite. It's proof in the other direction when you start looking at their total training volumes and weekly volumes and everything. You see what they're doing and you're like, how are they recovering from that? It's the drugs. It's the drugs. And I'm not taking away from their work ethic. Look, I mean, if guys are out there training hard, they're training hard, whether they're using stuff or not. And I'll give credit for that. I mean, Michael Hearn trains his ass off. He trains his ass off. No one can deny that. And the dude is strong. Dude's a legitimately strong dude who trains his ass off. Unbelievable training ethic in his 40s. But he's not natural. See, we can give credit where credit is due and still laugh about the whole natural claim, because we can do both of those, because it is possible. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.